Welcome to But Jesus Drank Wine.
And other stories that kept us stuck. I'm Meade.
And I'm Christy.
In this podcast, we'll explore the stories that kept us, stuck, wanting to drink and not wanting to drink all at the same time.
Join us as we show you that freedom from alcohol does not have to mean a life sentence of misery and missing out.
But actually means living an authentic life full of peace, joy, and purpose.
I'm so excited for today, Meade, because I've listened to your story on Annie Grace's podcast and a few other places, but today I get to hear it for myself and I get to ask my questions.
Yes,
I'm
girl.
so excited. And so, yeah.
Let's do it.
Where did it all start for you?
Where did it all start? So I would say like taking it back to like high school when I first tried alcohol. It was definitely something I was at a party. Is it weird that I can't remember exactly when?
No.
Because I can remember weird details about things, but this is one that I keep trying to think of, like, when was the first time I actually tried it? But I do remember that, as a high schooler who was going to parties and, drinking because that's what everybody was doing. I remember thinking like, I can't believe everybody else is drinking this. How are they doing it? It tastes so bad. Like, I don't know how anyone's doing this, but also like, this is what everybody's doing. So just, put on the face and keep going. And so so like in high school, I was a very social person. I have a brother who's 2 years older and he was like the athletic academic one. And, I was known for my social gifts. So going to parties and, being part of having a social circle, that was really important to me. And so, alcohol definitely made that easier to be part of that. Right. And so moving into college, still like my drinking didn't look anything different than anybody else's. I went to what people would consider, people say, oh, like East Carolina, that's a party school. I'm like, yeah, but aren't all colleges,
So true. Yeah.
party schools? For the most part, right? And so, definitely there I joined a sorority and there were, mixers, at frat houses and we would go downtown. Going out was going downtown. I know, like, I can remember like people making it their mission to go out and get drunk. I can't say that was ever my like mission. I was somebody, it's funny when we talked about your story before, you were talking about this like control theme. And that for me was, I think, something that really helped for a time, keep it from getting too out of control. I really liked to have control. And so, I'm not sure it was ever my mission to go out and get drunk, but it just so happened that it happened a lot. Right. And so, binge drinking in college, that's kind of what we did. There was a season, in college where my parents were divorcing, my grandfather died, my mom was diagnosed with leukemia, all around. I was president of my sorority at the time, all around. This all happened with like in a 6-month span. And that was for sure, I can look back on that and say that was a time that's when I started using alcohol and food to kind of cope. I gained 30 pounds in like 1 month in college that year. But yet I was able to, I got a great therapist and totally, that was the semester I got a 1.1 GPA. Not proud of that, but like, just shows how stressful that period of time was for me. And then, with the help of an awesome therapist, I was able to kind of right the ship and, graduate with honors by and everything was, so my drinking went back to just kind of looking like everybody else's. Outside of college, I grew up at the beach. I've talked about this before too, but like the kind of where I grew up, day drinking was a thing before it was like an actual thing, as long as you were at the beach. So, I know like I remember being a kid and seeing my parents and family and their friends all sitting around, with a cooler full of beers. And as long as you're at the beach, to me, the impression was like, as long as you're at the beach, it doesn't really matter what time of day it is that you're drinking.
Yeah.
And so, for sure, coming out of college from like that kind of binge drinking lifestyle, I would say, and then moving back home to the beach, it just kind of continued, like beach parties. And I mean, we did that in high school as well. Like we would go to the beach for the day and take wine coolers with us. Now we wouldn't like go to someone else's house and just start drinking, at noon. But if we were at the beach, it was like it was part of that, just part of that experience kind of always. So coming out of college, I got my dream job in pharmaceutical sales, and the culture there was very much work hard, play hard. And I mean, we had national sales meetings in Vegas where, going on a couple hours of sleep, you were still getting up and, working. And then they would, treat you to these lovely, big nights, stay up all night drinking. And so like that was, it was still kind of like normal, what everybody else was doing. So I never really, it wasn't a problem, if you will. So moving into, I met my husband, we met at a beach party, and we were both in pharmaceutical sales. It's a funny story for another time. And, part of kind of like what we did in our early dating life was, get together for some drinks. And I think that's just that's what the culture was, and maybe still is. It's, if you're going to do something social, it's like, hey, let's go grab a drink. And so even all those years ago, back in the olden days, that's what it was. And a lot of, into early, we started a family. I became a kind of an accidental stay-at-home mom when we moved. And during that time period, because of that whole like kind of control theme that you kind of spoke to too, it was easy for me to kind of keep it to like only special occasions and never with the kids around. And so I had all of these kind of like rigid rules around what was acceptable or not acceptable when it came to drinking, and it didn't feel like it was anything that got in the way in those days. If we went out to eat or had like a weekends away, we overdid it, not because we were going out to overdo it, but because we would it was that experience of like letting our hair down at kind of a continuation of that kind of work hard, play hard kind of thing. And so wine was very much synonymous with like celebration, vacation, reward for working hard, unwinding, just being able to relax, and that kind of thing. But I didn't drink during the week. We would, it was only like the special occasions. And then we moved to a very like social neighborhood, and that combined with my youngest going to school full time, which meant I jumped. I didn't even like pause and think about it. I just went straight back, resumed my career in pharmaceutical sales. Those kind of two things really accelerated the amount of wine that I was drinking, because it became to be, everything was moving into a social neighborhood, and it was like getting together again, that kind of like social theme of let's get together for a drink. It's, I think about it now, it's like, why, it's like that, in Good Will Hunting, where she's like, I can't remember her name, the character, but she says to Matt Damon, maybe we could get together for a cup of coffee. And he's like, or we could get together and eat a bunch of caramels. And she's like, what? And he's like, well, isn't that as arbitrary as getting together for a cup of coffee? Like, that's what I think of now when I think about like, hey, like, let's get together for a drink. Like, why couldn't we have done these like family, like, why is that the thing? But, of course, as we know, there are our cultural conditioning, our family's origin, all the things that influence that. it just has become the connector. That's what we do. And so we did that, and combined with it being a really, really stressful period. I had this like grand idea that, going back to work being a full-time mom and a full-time working mom, like I had girlfriends that did it and they made it look so easy. And so, I thought I would kind of do the same thing, like, work hard, but don't let them see you sweat kind of thing. So, but the job that I got, the expectations they had of us, it was just like a perfect storm. And, around that time, it's, like we would only drink on the weekends when we got together with friends. But slowly over time, it was like, oh, well, Thursday night is, the weekend, and Sunday night is the weekend. And, and then the next thing, it's like, well, maybe we'll take Monday off, but Tuesday and Wednesday are, also weekend nights. Right. And this is around this time, this is when I was like, kind of like, we're heading in the wrong direction here. Like, I was aware of that, but also everything revolved around drinking. So, the thought of like changing something, it was too terrible. Like, I didn't even consider it. And so, we took, 30-day breaks here and there to try and like, reboot. Like dry Januaries were, kind of a big deal. I never made it like the full 30 days. And what's interesting about these times, so like you can picture that I had everything was very like controlled and rigid, and I had these rules, but at a certain point, like I won't drink during the week, but then I started sliding on those. Or, I can eat healthy and I can exercise 4 to 5 times a week to like undo what I've just done over the weekend, drinking too much, the bottles of wine that I've consumed with friends, and then the crap eating from there that happens as a result. I had all of these like rigid rules in my, my way of trying to control it. But as I started kind of like breaking those rules, I think that's when the noise, the internal tension really started to ratchet up, because once you start breaking these rules that you've made with yourself, then you're starting to beat yourself up for breaking these rules. And then it starts I think that looking back, I can easily see where that probably was a major turning point. And so, it was the strangest thing, because, like from the outside looking in, like, I did have everything under control and everything looked great on paper. What people didn't see was that like I had a low grade irritability, kind of just constant low grade irritability. I was really, impatient, or I would snap at my kids or at Todd. And that was also what I thought that like, I just thought that was kind of like normal. Right. But it also is noticing that and noticing how that made, everybody around me not so happy. That absolutely fed my kind of, like if I drink wine, then it takes the edge off, and I'm not as irritable, I'm not as snappy. And so I'm a better mom if I drink wine, and I'm a better wife. I'm more bearable to be around. What I didn't realize is that, those edges that I was trying to take off, my air quote edges, those edges were caused by at this point, like the wine habit that was pretty consistent. And so, so once I became aware of this, which was a really painful thing to start thinking about, like, I went a really long period of time knowing that something was off and feeling this internal conflict, this tension, this rub, this ache that I couldn't put my finger on. But I had the hardest time really seeing that it was how alcohol was getting in the way of how I wanted to show up in my life. And, like, for example, like, going to church on a Sunday, I was worried that maybe people would smell the wine that was on my breath from, the party that we had been to the night before, or just the hangout. There were a lot of times that we didn't even go to these, huge parties all the time. It's just a casual kind of get together with friends that turns into, I was never the one that left a party early ever in my entire life.
Me
ever,
neither.
ever. Yeah.
Me neither.
Which is so amazing. Now I wear it as a badge of honor that and I've had all that I've had all I need here for this party, and I am out. I'm going to go get a good night's rest. But yeah, it slowly became this, I just started to see, I had this awareness for how potentially this thing that I thought was necessary to my life and helping me survive life, wine, was actually getting in the way of, everything, like my relationship with God, my relationship with my family, my kids. I would want to stay up late, hanging out, being social, on a Friday night. But then on Saturday, when I'm not feeling so great, that didn't make me want to spend time with my kids in a way that I really, when I, had been drinking, really wanted to. And so there were all of these little, just those contradictions, that start to take a hold. And when you're, trying not to feel the pain of that, it's the last thing you want to do is bring attention to it, right? And say, okay, this isn't working. And by the way, this is the thing that, I didn't know anybody that didn't drink. Everything was part of, was wrapped around having drinks together. And the times where at this point where I was I don't think that I want to keep doing this. We would still get together with friends, and tonight I'm just not going to drink. But then someone would break out the, Sonoma Cutrer, and oh gosh, well, I'm going to have that. Cause it would call for me, I couldn't say, I used to say I was defenseless to a good bottle of wine. And so
relate to that.
Yeah. So despite saying I don't want to keep doing this, it still was something that I wasn't, able to just say, okay, I don't want to do this, and I'm not going to. And I think that was a place for me that this was probably around 2018 or so. This was a time that I was well, then what are my options? Because what I had, if, maybe the one person I did know that did not drink alcohol, it was because they were, again, air quote, alcoholic. That's what they would describe themselves as. And I'm thinking, to me, that if that's the example of what a problem drinker is, well, this isn't having any outward detrimental effects to my life. I'm despite it being a really tough season, I was killing it at my job. I was doing a great job with my job. Now, I was doing it not very happily, and then kind of biting my family's heads off as a result at the same time. But it was definitely, I only knew that a problem drinker is someone that you change your alcohol relationship when you hit a rock bottom because you're an alcoholic. And that was not something that my life didn't look like that at all. So I was kind of okay, well, I can continue, drinking somewhat miserably, because I had simultaneous thoughts. I want to drink and I don't want to drink.
Yeah.
And so I can continue with that, or I can try every single day for the rest of my life not to drink. That sounded miserable. That was my idea of what, sober living looked like. Air quotes again. And so I was miserable or miserable? those were my two options. And
Yeah.
I felt stuck. I'm like, what kind of options are those? I might as well keep drinking. If I'm going to be miserable either way, might as well keep drinking, might as well be miserable with a glass of wine. So, or 3 or whatever. But I also, around this time, I decided that like enough was enough. Maybe I just needed to get that rock bottom. So if I could hurry up and get that rock bottom, then maybe I'd be forced to do something about it. And then, I guess once you have a rock bottom, then you go to AA and you go to rehab and you do all of those things, and then you don't have a choice. And so therefore I'll force myself into this kind of life because I did not want to keep going the way that I was. And that's when, like, one day the kids were at school and Todd was off at work, and I got on my knees and I just laid it all out there to the Lord, and I prayed and prayed and prayed. I said, like, please give me a rock bottom, one that won't hurt anybody, right? Like, I don't, let's keep everybody safe, but I'm ready for that. If that's what I need to find freedom and peace and not be pulled by this substance, then like bring it on. And thankfully I didn't get a rock bottom. I got something better. I found this naked mind. But before that, I will say there was one night that bedtime was a sacred time of day for me. When I was a stay-at-home mom, especially, it's like if I could make it to the end of the day with the kids, like no matter, how whatever our day looked like, if I got to bedtime could always be this kind of like sacred space of, stories and songs and prayers together, snuggling. Like, I felt like it also was like my time where I just shined. Like, as a mom, bedtime was my thing. And so a lot of my conflict around my wine habit at that point was bumping up against my love for the sacred bedtime, and it got in the way of it. So if I was on my way home from work thinking about, like, I can't wait till I open that bottle of wine, and that's what helped me get through cooking dinner and doing the homework, doing all the things with the kids. And as long as I had a glass of wine in my hand, my companion, then I could like survive getting through these things. Not only that, but it, bedtime became that bedtime routine that I love so much. It became like shorter and shorter because I would feel this, like I wanted to hurry and finish bedtime with the kids so I could get back downstairs and have another glass of wine, or, grab a glass of wine and go watch my shows. And so, one night, so gratefully, even though it was super painful at the time, I was making the rounds with the kids, and I came in to tuck my 4-year-old in, and I went to just smother her with kisses like I did every single night, just kissing her all over her face. And she's like, "Ew, Mom, no kisses tonight. Your breath smells like wine. Your breath stinks." And I was like, oh my gosh. So in that moment, I'm like, first of all, did my 4-year-old just call me out for drinking? I got like defensive. I was like, excuse me. And then the reality and the sadness of what she has just, said really hit me later. And it was that, like, first of all, like, how long has she been wanting me? Like, first of all, I smell like wine probably most nights, so why tonight does she care?
Yeah.
That was my first thought, kind of that thought brought me kind of sadness. And then the second thought of, like, how long has she been enduring my stinky kisses and not saying anything? And that's a moment that I will just be forever grateful for. On this side, it was awful in the moment, but it really was kind of that, like, wake up call for me. Like, what are you doing? And and how is it affecting your kids? Like, you think that they don't notice, but, and I can't, anyway. And we'll talk about that at some point too, like the things that they do know and what the things that they did, like, kind of pick up on, and the things that they don't. But that was a period of time, 2019, when the company I was working for, they laid off the entire sales force in September of that year. And it was it was scary. And then it was also a blessing because this was at the peak of like the tension and like, what am I going to do about this? And I prayed for my rock bottom. It's kind of like, I want to make a change here, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. I did research AAs at one point, like maybe I'll go to an AA, but I never really felt like that was a place. Like what I was missing in my life is time and presence with my family, time and presence doing the things that were important and valuable to me, being with my kids, not taking away from time with them. And so for me, one of the obstacles for like AA was I would have to travel to a different city where no one knew me, and I'd have to go to these meetings, and I have to go all the time. And so then all of a sudden I would be getting more time back. Like if I wasn't, I'd be taking up more time away from my family, and I just wouldn't be, I wouldn't be drinking. And so, so that was something that was kind of like frustrating. Like why isn't there another option? I didn't think I qualified for rehab. I didn't think I was, addicted to alcohol. So rehab wasn't an option. However, it was intriguing to think that I could just maybe disappear for a couple of weeks and figure this out and then come back and just never have to deal with it again. Like that was very appealing to me.
Me too.
Yeah. If only it's that easy, right?
Yeah.
But that definitely was not, obviously an option too. And so it wasn't until a conversation I was having with a neighbor talking about we always used to just talk about like how, we worked out at the same gym and like we would work out during the week and we felt great by the end of the week. And then, with the social lives that we had, that like we would just undo it all, football parties on the weekends and, all the social gatherings. And so he said, well, I heard about this book, but be careful, if you read it, you may never want to drink again. And I was like, oh my gosh, tell me the name of this book. I was like, that's exactly the point. I would never have to drink again. Like at this point for me, it wasn't just about the fact that like I had to kill myself in the gym 5 days a week to undo all of the drinking, it wasn't just about the health side of it, the fitness side of it. Like this was about like, I spent so much time thinking about planning for, prepping for, trying to control, how to control the rules. There was so much mental real estate consumed by alcohol. It wasn't just the time drinking. It was all the mental real estate consumed by how to control it, how to plan for it, what am I going to drink? What am I going to drink? How am I going to, like all of those things. And that's what I was looking for relief from. So when he said, you may never drink again, I was like, bring it on. I got it on Audible right away and started listening to Annie and was like, oh my gosh, yes, I so feel this. And she even says in there, she's like, don't change anything. I was like, wait, I don't have to change anything yet. And that was huge for me because that allowed me the space to get really curious about what my relationship to alcohol looked like. And through that, putting down those, weapons of blame and shame, as we say, being able to like turn to learning about like, all the things that we talk about, that really helped me get to the point where I saw where wine, I had these long conditioned beliefs that wine helped me relax. It helped me be a better mom. It helped me be a better wife. I needed it to take the edges off, to take the edge off. It helped me be social. It was the glue holding my social life together. It was like, it was an important, necessary air quotes again, part of my life. And so of course, the thought of not drinking it and having to change that meant that it was really hard. And during those 30-day breaks I took before, the thoughts of drinking I was even more miserable when I wasn't drinking it because my thoughts were still on it and I still wanted it. And I was looking forward to, well, this isn't forever. So I'll get to drink again. And I never made it to 30 days because the noise got to be so great. And so all of that to say, I was able to work on each of those, become aware of and work on each of those beliefs that I had about how wine supposedly was helping me, enhancing my life. And in so doing, with the thing of my methodology, I changed my desire to drink. And that was, so December 1st, 2019 was the last time I ever tasted.
Oh, your anniversary is coming up.
It is. And it's funny because I remember so vividly the day. I didn't pick it like on purpose. But so my youngest is in the Nutcracker. And so this time of year, so when we get off of this week, as we're recording this, I will be getting off this call and going to get her ready for her dress rehearsal in a little bit. And what I remember about 3 years ago is that going to the ballet, like I would never have, you wouldn't go to the ballet and not have a couple glasses of wine. Like that's just what everybody does. And so December 1st, 2019, we went to the Nutcracker that day. I'd finished the book, but I was so scared to finish this Naked Mind too. Cause I was like, what if this doesn't work? I had all my hopes on that. And then that day went to the Nutcracker. So it was a given that I would have wine while we were there. And I got it and I was just like, there's no enjoyment in this. I don't want this. And so I woke up the next day. I was like, I'm done. That's it. So in the last 3 years, which I never was one to keep track of days or like counting, like all of the kind of traditional programming that is around, this space, like didn't appeal to me so much, but every once in a while I'll look up like how many days it's been. And this summer I was right. I was doing this thing and I looked up the days. It was 999 days. And now I think it's like 1,086 days, but like that's 1,086 days of not drinking, but not just not drinking, like not having a single desire or temptation to drink ever. And so when I say like, it's not been hard to not drink because I haven't had the desire to drink. But what's hard, again, gosh, I air quotes a lot.
That's all right. I like it.
So interesting for people that will not be seeing, but I like tie my hands together. I don't think I'd be able to speak. But like, the fact that I haven't had any desire, any temptation, that part has not been hard. But what has been more challenging is just existing in a world where people look at you like you're crazy for not drinking. And so navigating all of those things and relearning things. Like I'd never had a vacation where I came home rejuvenated and restored and like rested from a vacation, because vacations always meant overdoing it, having one too many glasses of wine. And so learning how to do all of those things without alcohol, that's been interesting, but it's been incredible. And it doesn't hurt that, so our company laid us off in September of 2019. I was like, well, I'm going to get through the holidays. I was working on this drinking thing at the same time. So I was like, you know what, we're going to get through the holidays and then I'll, seriously look at getting another pharmaceutical sales job. And then it was right January, February, where my old manager had something lined up for me. And at that same week, my mom sent me the email from this Naked Mind that said that they were looking to train coaches for this. And I had, during that time, I found freedom from alcohol, December 1st, 2nd, whatever, 2019. I had kind of unofficially coached my mom to finding freedom from alcohol at that time.
I love that.
We were the best of wine buddies back in the day. But I helped coach her through that, just kind of through my experience. And then, so when this opportunity came up to apply to become a coach, and then at the same time I had this like new job, I was like, I just felt this. I mean, I prayed about it and I was like, no, I'm going to give up that bird in the hand job, because that job that excited me right out of college, my dream job, so to speak, it was exciting for a time. But it was not, I felt like it was just not right for me anymore. And so I, went all in with my coaching certification with the Sneaked Mind and have been coaching thousands of people since. It's been, over the last couple of years,
good.
which I know helps, all of it. But anyway, so I don't ever think about or desire alcohol. I talk about alcohol a lot because that's my job, but it doesn't have the same pull like it used to. So
yeah, that's so good. I love that so much. I have so many questions.
I know, right?
Yeah. So so my first question is that when you heard that neighbor say, like, you may never drink again, like, tell me about like hearing the word never, because I know with my clients and even with me, the word never, or I will never drink again, like that, I think tends to keep people stuck. But it seems like you just like were like, I'm ready. Talk to me about that.
So that's such a good question, because when I actually thought about it, it was the thing that terrified me, because it was like that forever miserable every single day for the rest of my life, trying not to drink. Like that was what I thought. But when he said it in that moment, I was at a place where it was like, I had explored the only options that I knew that were out there. It was keep doing what I'm doing, which was not working. And I was like, we're not heading in the right direction here. Like, it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. And then, it is an addictive substance. I knew that much, right? Like I didn't know all that I know about alcohol now, but I did know that much. And then the other part of that was just that, like my idea of, again, air quotes, sobriety and what that looked like meant like you can't ever drink again. And that sounded really hard and miserable. But when he said that to me, I think it just was, I had just fallen to my knees and prayed for the Lord to give me a rock bottom. And this happened within a week of that, where it was like, oh, but here's this book. You may never, what he said was, you may never want to drink again.
Yeah.
And that's where I felt hope, because I was like, yes, it's not that I'm drinking or not drinking. Yes, it is that. But more than that, what's keeping me stuck is that I want to drink and I don't want to drink. It's that conflict. And so I don't know that he intended for it to come out that way, but I think that's what I heard, that it's like, oh, if I can just solve for wanting it and make myself not want it, like just like sweet tea. I've never wanted sweet tea. I will never drink sweet tea. Maybe my want will change one day, but I've never desired it. So I don't order it when I go out. I don't drink it. That was in my mind kind of how alcohol could become based on this book he was talking about. And it was exactly true. I didn't become sober. I changed my desire to drink, which eliminated the temptation. But even going into it, so, having that nutcracker, drinking the wine, like as like kind of a last, like, okay, like, let's kind of see if this is it kind of thing. From that point, I never said, I will never drink again. I never made it, because again, when I did those 30 days before, I couldn't even make it to 30 days and I was miserable. So as long as I had that like time frame, and that's where we know with clients, like that is one of the hardest things to change your mindset around. It's, like number one, I don't ever have to drink again. Hallelujah. Like who knew that it was a choice? Number two,
who knew it was a choice? That's so good.
Who knew I had a choice? I did not feel like I had a choice when I was stuck. And I thought it was just what I, as a reformed people pleaser, I thought it's just what I had to do to be, have my relationships intact. And then I've never said I will never drink again. I feel very strongly that I won't. But but I say, like, if I ever want to drink again, I will, and that's okay too. And that ability to take that pressure off of ourselves, I think, is what helped me find freedom. Because as long as I was saying these are the rules and they're rigid, and I was always kind of trying to that pressure eventually gets to be too much, just like it did when I wouldn't drink during the week. I was only drinking on the weekends, but then Thursday became part of a weekend and Wednesday. And so, yeah, such a good question. Love that.
Yeah, I love that. If I ever want to drink again, I will. I just don't want to. That's so good. So, so good. You listed like some beliefs about like what alcohol did for you, coping, reward, all of that stuff, relaxing. What was the last kind of belief that you had to turn around? What was the sticker? That's not a word, sticker outer. That's not a word. But what was the last one?
I like it.
Because mine was definitely fun. Mine was like, I definitely thought there was no way you could have fun without it. And that was the last one for me. What was yours?
Agreed. Fun was huge on that list. But more so in the sense of like me being fun, like fun as my identity, because that was also like kind of the role that I always played within my family. Like, I mean, you go all the way back. I'm a deep thinker, deep feeler, and that by nature. And that was not something that worked well in my tense household growing up. And so I became the light, funny, like easy, entertaining one. And so, going back to even thinking about high school and drinking alcohol and how I noticed very quickly that helped me be more likable, more enjoyable, more fun to be around. So I thought. And so for me, it was kind of severing that, identity of like, I could be fun, or that people will still want to hang out with me, even if I'm not drinking, or that I am still funny without drinking. And so that's a big one with a lot of like branches of the tree that kind of spawn off of it. But that was the trickiest for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally relate to that. I think it becomes so ingrained in us as people, right? That we are fun or funny. Or I had one client say I'll never forget it. She said, I just realized I didn't want to be the show pony anymore. The one that everybody else wanted to be around because, I was, she was basically putting on a show, exactly what it sounds like. And I was like, oh, that's so good and so true. And I so related to when she said that.
That's exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. One last question.
Go ahead.
Sorry, one last question, because I didn't realize that your date was December 1st, and that is so wild because like I don't think I could have ever imagined, even because mine was March, of going into Christmas party season without alcohol. So let's back to 2019. It's your very first Christmas, like December, without drinking. Tell me like the things that you were the most, I guess, surprised by, and the things that that just you were so glad to learn, if that makes sense. Like what really like impacted you about that month?
Oh my gosh. God, how much time do we have? That's such a good question.
We have 4 minutes, Meade.
Well, and if you know me, that's not going to cut it.
Well, listen, let's make it an episode.
Yes. We'll make it. So yes, we will go into detail about that, because I'm so glad you asked that, because that's often something that I overlook, because I mean, it's been 3 years now, and just there's so many things that were, and this is the other part of that. It was not hard at all for me to go through the holidays like that, because I was free from alcohol. I wasn't trying to be alcohol free. I was free from alcohol. And so the euphoria that I had from, the peace in my body, in my mind, in my being.
Yeah.
It was like, at my journal from that time, it was just like, it was a high all of itself, to be free from that burden that was like this thing that was majorly getting in the way. So when I can think about, it was the holidays, and I'd only been alcohol free for, 3 weeks or whatever, the whole season of actually December, my ability to be present, there wasn't that low grade irritability or that stress of like, I looking back, I can see like I put a lot of demand on making everything look good, making everything, fit perfectly and be this. I had high expectations for what everything should look like and be like for Christmas Day and all the parties and all of these things. And it's like all of that went away because as long as I was not free from alcohol, the anxiety that was continually increasing by the day was making all of that so much more miserable. And so the relief from the anxiety, like I thought wine helped my anxiety. It single-handedly was the biggest contributing factor, the biggest reason for my anxiety. And so going into a stressful period of time, which I can think about now, like holidays, I love that. Like they're peaceful and calm and enjoyable and lovely because there's not all of that stress that goes along with it that was also perpetuated by the drinking. And the other part of that being like, even when you're not actively drinking, like it was the distraction that this conflict had. It was distracting me from being able to be present, and affected everything. So it made me, short fused. And so it was like this, I don't know, this experience of like sitting there on Christmas morning going like, there's nothing I have to do. There's nothing nowhere I have to be. Like there's nothing, it is just what it is. And I remember everything and I don't have to worry about like, there was no thoughts of like, what Christmas Eve service do we go to for church? Because can't go to the one that's later if we've had some, drinks at dinner. And like, it was just light and free and amazing. So it's not like that for most people, right? Like most people go through holidays alcohol free. And it's a struggle. It's new. It's different. But the difference for me is that I was free from alcohol at that time. And if I had done that, if I had tried that the previous year, I wouldn't have even made it an hour or, being able to do that. So,
it's such a testament to the way that this naked mind and the methodology that we both coach, like how it works and how it can free you, and that it doesn't have to be a struggle for the rest of your life. Yeah, it can be a little bit tricky in the beginning, but it's not this ongoing battle for the rest of your life. And when you do find that like peace and that freedom, it's just when you experience that 100% for yourself, like why would you go back? Why would you?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, it's so bizarre to me that I can be with girlfriends who are drinking old favorite bottles of wine of mine that like I would never have said no to, and I can look at it and I can go like, do I want that? And I can, there's no hesitation. Like there's nothing in me that's like, I'm like, no, you could not pay me to drink that, because the peace, the freedom, the joy, the connection, like the deeper connections I have in all of my relationships with the Lord, with my husband, with my children, with my friends, like it's exponentially better than I could have ever imagined. I thought you'd find freedom from alcohol and then just like everything would be great, but like, and it is, but it just keeps getting better. And I think that's where I'm just continually surprised by how great this life can be. And I will say, I just want to caveat a little bit there, because a lot of people go about this different ways, but you can find freedom from alcohol. And when you have no desire, you have no temptation, it's not hard to, go into the holidays 2 weeks later and not think twice about, like, those used to be boozy occasions for us, huge, the fancy glass, all the things that go along with it. But some people remove alcohol first. They live alcohol free while they're working on changing those beliefs, identifying and changing those beliefs that tell them there's some benefit, so-called benefit to drinking. And so some people do remove it from their bodies first and then find freedom through working through. I just was the one that, I just did it like other people do, where I kept drinking as long as I was working on this, and then changed my desire. And then once you have no desire, there's no desire. So I never had to say like, okay, now I'm going to be alcohol free for this period, X amount of time. It was just like, well, I don't want to do that. So people do it different ways. And that's what I love about I know you do too, like coaching people where they are. Like there's no one size fits all, but noticing and, paying attention, like untangling that relationship to alcohol is, you can always, that puts you in a place of choice. You will always have choice, but just bringing awareness to what that relationship looks like, and anything goes, whatever you choose is, right for you. So
I love that. So good. I love this
fun.
so much. And I wrote down so many things that we can talk about in future episodes that will take an entire episode to talk about, like what is really connection and values and authenticity and all this good stuff. So I'm gonna wrap us up, but we have so much still to talk about, and this was so fun to hear your story.
You're so good at this, my friend. Thanks for that awesome interview.
Thank you so much for joining us again this week. You can find all of our episodes at butjesusdrankwine.com, and make sure you follow us over on the gram at butjesusdrankwine.
To learn more about what we do, you can visit our websites at meadhollandshirley.com and lovelifesober.com.
Take a screenshot of this podcast and share it with a friend or two.
And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you don't have to worry about missing a single episode. And if you love what we're doing, please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify.
This helps more women who are feeling stuck and alone in the overdrinking cycle to find hope and encouragement.
Thanks, ladies. We so appreciate you. We'll see you next week.